Okay, I am recording. All right. Hello.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes,
Now, do
ma'am.
you see my pointer?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Very good. All right. So now we are on to popliteal vein. The popliteal vein lies in the popliteal fossa and it begins at its lower angle of the popliteal fossa by joining the anterior and the posterior tibial veins. Now it travels almost through the midline in the popliteal fossa. Then it comes to its upper angle and enters the adductor canal, and there it becomes a femoral vein. As it lies here in the popliteal fossa, it is always between the artery which is deepest and the tibial nerve which is the most superficial. At all points, the popliteal vein lies between the artery and the tibial nerve. Alright, its main tributaries are the branches, according with the branches of popliteal artery. So the popliteal artery gives rise to 5 genicular branches and some muscular branches. So these will be the 5 genicular veins, and the muscular vein will be the tributaries of the popliteal vein. In addition to that, it will receive short saphenous vein, which we will come to see later on. Alright, okay. So now this is enough as far as deep veins are concerned. We straight away go to great saphenous vein. Now, saphenous in Greek means easily seen. The great saphenous vein lies in the superficial fascia, and that is why when you do the dissection, the moment you reflect the skin, you will see the great saphenous vein lying in the fat which is in the subcutaneous fascia. That is why it was named as saphenous, easily seen. It is also the longest vein of the body, longest superficial vein, I must add here, but it is still thick walled and it is muscular, and because it is starting right from the ankle joint upwards going right up to whole of the length of the leg, it has got 10 to 20 valves which allow the blood to flow upwards. I told you the function of valves that you have to remember. The whole column of blood in the short or great saphenous vein is divided into smaller segments because of the valves, because the valves open only in one direction from distal to proximal. That means from the distal part of the great saphenous vein towards the femoral vein. So the blood column is divided into short segments. That is why the distal part of the great saphenous vein does not have to bear all the pressure. Okay, now how does it begin? So the formation is near the ankle joint. You can describe it in two ways. One is there is a marginal vein that you will see just now. I will show you the medial marginal vein, and there is a dorsal venous arch. They join to form the great saphenous vein. Or there is a dorsal digital vein. The digital is between the toes. So the digital vein or the big toe or the great toe joins the medial end of dorsal venous arch. That is how great saphenous vein is formed. Now look at these diagrams. Here, if you see my cursor, say yes, because I am showing you the dorsal venous arch on the dorsum of the foot. Do you see it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
This
Yes,
dorsal
ma'am.
venous arch is formed by metatarsal veins. Look at your foot and look at the metatarsals. All right. So the veins which will be there will be metatarsal veins, and still more distal. Here they are not showing, but I will show it to you in the next diagram. Here will be the digital veins. Digital veins will join to form metatarsal veins, and metatarsal veins will drain into this dorsal venous arch, which is lying on the dorsum of the foot, and it will have a medial end and the lateral end. So now this is a medial end of the dorsal venous arch. From here, the great saphenous vein begins. My cursor is going along with the great saphenous vein. All right. Okay. So this is the medial end. Then there is one more vein. This is the medial vein of the great toe. Okay. Medial digital vein. So this vein and this medial end of the dorsal venous arch, medial end of the dorsal venous arch, and this medial marginal vein, they join to form the great saphenous vein. Now, the vein has to travel upwards. So the first part lies almost in contact with the lower 1/3 of the tibia. From there, it will travel upwards on the medial side of the leg, and now it will come to the knee joint. This is the knee joint, that is the patella, and here it lies about one hand's breadth. Look at this figure. You can see the hand. One hand's breadth on the medial side of the medial border of the patella. This is patella. This is his medial border. This is 1 hand's breadth, and now here it is lying. So you can say that it is lying posteromedial to the patella at the knee joint. From here, then it travels upwards on the medial side of the thigh, and as it goes up, it turns slightly laterally and goes to a place which is called as saphenous opening, which I am showing you here. If you can see all of this, say yes. Hello?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Here is the saphenous opening. We'll be talking more about it. Here is another diagram, great saphenous vein, 1 hand's breadth posteromedial to patella, then on the medial side of the thigh, and here it is going to the saphenous opening. When it goes there, it will pierce this cribriform fascia. You have learnt about it probably. And after piercing the cribriform fascia, it will pierce one more structure to enter into femoral vein. What is that structure that it will pierce? This is your question. What will it pierce to open into femoral vein? Is anybody going to answer that? Hello?
Femoral sheath.
Axial sheath.
No, somebody said something, that girl before that. What did you say?
Femoral sheath.
Correct. So it pierces the anterior wall of the femoral sheath and it enters the femoral vein. Where it enters the femoral vein, there is a valve which is very important, that is called as a saphenofemoral valve. And this one that you see here, one second. Here, do you see this valve? That is one of the valves of the femoral vein. Okay, and here at this point there will be saphenofemoral valve. So that is the beginning and that is the end. It will pierce also the deep fascia, which is also called as, what is the name of the deep fascia of the thigh?
Fascia lata.
Fascia lata. Very good. So
Fascia
now this is
lata.
almost the repetition. Now let's take the course and relation a little bit in detail. You have seen the formation. Now, when it comes to the medial malleolus, it goes anterior to the medial malleolus. Just remember this, it is anterior to medial malleolus and it lies between the medial malleolus and the tendon of tibialis anterior. Tibialis anterior is a muscle of the anterior compartment. Then it becomes tendinous, comes on the dorsum of the foot. And where does it get inserted? Does it go all the way to digits?
Base of
Tibialis anterior. Huh? Does it go to digits? Yes or no?
No.
No. So where is it inserted? To the tarsal bones. Which particular ones?
Extensor.
Medial cuneiform and the first metatarsal. Okay. So it lies between tibialis anterior tendon and the medial malleolus. Right. Okay. So that is its relation. As it is lying in the leg, it is accompanied by a nerve which is called as the saphenous nerve. Saphenous nerve is a branch of which nerve?
Femoral nerve.
Good. And it is a cutaneous nerve and it will go to supply that medial side of the foot that you know. Okay. As it travels up in the thigh, it is accompanied by the branches of medial cutaneous nerve of the thigh. Right, which is also branch of the femoral nerve. All right. Okay. Then as it ascends, we have done this all this. So as it goes up, it pierces the cribriform fascia, and once again it pierces the anterior wall of the femoral sheath and opens into the femoral vein. Right. So then this is the saphenous opening. A little bit about the saphenous opening. Now, saphenous opening is this way. What will you call this shape? It's called crescentic or C-shaped, or also called as what wall is that? Okay, we'll come to know a little later. Now, this is the opening in the deep fascia and it is located about 3.5 or 4 centimeter inferolateral to pubic tubercle. Come here. This is a pubic tubercle roughly, and from there it is lateral and it is inferior. Okay, and its dimensions are also 2.5 and this is 3.5 length and 2.5 breadth. So it is crescentic in shape. Alright? Okay. Now it is covered by one fascia, and that fascia is called as cribriform fascia. What is this cribriform fascia? It's a part of what?
Deep fascia.
Part of deep fascia. Actually, it is described as membranous layer, which is actually coming from the abdomen. Okay, so the membranous layer of the fascia, which is actually subcutaneous tissue, which is closing this cribriform, this saphenous opening. So saphenous opening is C-shaped, its margin, medial margin is smooth, and its lateral margin as well as superior and inferior margins are slightly thickened, and it is crescentic. This is also called as falciform margin. Alright, now this whole thing is covered by cribriform fascia, which they have removed in this particular diagram. Now, this is a gap in the deep fascia. The dimensions I have already told you. Now, cribriform fascia is called cribriform because it is sieve-like. I think you know sieve, by which what you do, that atta or something you sieve, right? Do you know what is sieve? Especially the boys?
Yes. Yes.
Boys, girls I know. Hello? Do the boys know what is sieve? Huh? Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. So it is a sieve-like fascia. That means it is pierced by, it has got many holes. Alright. These many holes are because of 3 branches of femoral artery, which are cutaneous branches. They are going out from the femoral artery. That is cutaneous, superficial, external pudendal, superficial, circumflex iliac. Alright. And superficial epigastric. You know these branches, so you have to just recollect, as well as the deep external pudendal, they are piercing, as well as the lymphatics, which are going from the superficial lymph nodes, inguinal lymph nodes, which are here below the inguinal ligament. Those lymphatics are also piercing, and last thing that it pierces is the saphenous vein. So these structures you have to know. Cribriform fascia becomes cribriform because it is pierced by lymphatics of the superficial inguinal node, then cutaneous branches of femoral artery, and the great saphenous vein. So you will get a note on this saphenous opening and cribriform fascia. You must write at least this much, that is the opening, right? Okay, some more diagrams of, this is a cribriform, this is saphenous opening and cribriform fascia. You can see here the great saphenous vein which is going through it, and some branches of femoral artery, but that is not very clear here. The next diagram on the right shows you the femoral sheath, right? Part of the sheath has been reflected, so you see the great saphenous vein, but you don't see it piercing. But of course, it has to pierce the anterior wall of the femoral sheath to open into femoral vein. Here you can revise your relation. This is femoral artery, so the femoral vein is on the medial side, and still more medially is a femoral canal. And in the femoral canal is a deep inguinal lymph node, and this is a femoral ring, right? Okay, and this is the great saphenous vein which is opening in it. So what are the tributaries of great saphenous vein? Here you can see this is femoral vein and this is a great saphenous vein. So starting distally here near the ankle, it will get the blood from the sole and dorsum of the foot. Then it will receive anterior vein of the leg. This is the anterior vein of the leg, and this is the posterior arch vein. The posterior arch vein is also called by surgeons as a vein of Leonardo da Vinci. That is formed by the perforators. We'll come to perforators. So there are 3 perforators at the ankle which join to form posterior arch vein, which also is a tributary in the leg. As it goes up in the thigh, it receives a posteromedial vein coming from the posterior side and anterolateral vein which is coming from the lateral side. And finally, it will receive the veins accompanying the superficial branches of femoral artery. That means superficial epigastric, superficial circumflex iliac, and this is a superficial pudendal. They all join the great saphenous vein. Remember that, though they are the branches of the femoral artery, they will open in the great saphenous vein, which is then open into femoral vein. Last branch of the last tributary is the deep external pudendal, just before it pierces. That is the last tributary of the great saphenous vein. So you can see here, next diagram, 3 cutaneous branches opening in great saphenous vein. This is anterolateral, that is posteromedial, and these rest, you know that very well. Again, in the thigh, anterolateral, posteromedial, 3 cutaneous branches, all are going into great saphenous vein, and yes, deep external pudendal just before it pierces. Same diagram, you can see it later. So what is the clinical anatomy of great saphenous vein? The great saphenous vein, you know very well, is used as a coronary arterial graft. Why do you want to use that? Because it is a muscular vein, so it will help. Just before you put that, you remove a small piece of the great saphenous vein, then reverse it, because now you don't want the valves on the inner side. It will impede the coronary artery blood flow. So you reverse it. The valve side, interior side will be on the outer side, and then it is stitched to the coronary artery. So that is a important use of the great saphenous vein as a coronary arterial graft. Other part is that when the great saphenous vein becomes dilated and it becomes tortuous, you call that as a varicose vein, varicosity of the lower limb, which is it's not so very uncommon. You might have seen somewhere those tortuous veins on the leg, especially on the posterior side and medial side. So this is common in people like us who stand and lecture for one hour, or traffic police or surgeons or bus conductors, nurses, etc. Even the school teachers, they all have the tendency to form the varicose veins. This is mainly because of incompetency of the valves. Remember, I told you there are 10 to 20 valves in the great saphenous vein. So when these valves do not function properly, do not close, and they allow the backflow of the blood from the proximal segment coming back to the distal segment, and if this keeps on happening again and again, the great saphenous vein becomes dilated and then it becomes tortuous, and that you call it as varicose veins of the leg. The other thing is that when you get a patient in the ward who is dehydrated and you cannot see its vein, you cannot see it, yeah. So when the veins are all collapsed, the great saphenous vein is bigger than them, so it is used as a cut down. Meaning there is a small nick or the incision that you take near the medial malleolus in front of it, and you put a cannula. Normally, when you want to inject any intravenous fluid or withdraw the blood, you use a needle. But here you will put a cannula, and because of that cannula, the vein remains open and you can give the intravenous fluids for a longer time. So this is a clinical anatomy. So you have to know all these parts that we have said, because your question is on the great saphenous vein. So you have to write the formation, why the name, how many valves, that it is muscular, big, and its course, its relation, its termination, and the tributaries, along with the clinical part that we have just done. So this another short vein is a short or the small saphenous vein, or SSV we will call first short. So this is confined only to the leg, as you can see this diagram, and it is on the lateral side. So it will start from the lateral end of the dorsal venous arch, as I have already showed you from there. Or second way to form is digital vein of the little toe, like the big toe we saw. That and the dorsal venous arch lateral end, they unite to form the short saphenous vein, or fusion of many small veins behind the lateral malleolus forms the short saphenous vein. Now, when it is formed, it will go upwards. As it goes up, remember, this is a lateral malleolus and it is posterior to the lateral malleolus. The great saphenous vein was anterior to the medial malleolus. Are you following me?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. So now it is going posterior to lateral malleolus and it travels up almost middle of the leg, posterior side. Then it will keep on going towards the popliteal fossa. This is the popliteal fascia. So now it will pierce the popliteal fascia and enters into the popliteal vein. When it is passing around the lower part of the leg, it is accompanied by sural nerve. The medial great saphenous vein was accompanied by which nerve?
Saphenous nerve.
Saphenous nerve. So both veins are accompanied by some name with S. That was saphenous. This is a sural. And this is a sural communicating. So that is little bit away, but both of them are related to the great saphenous, short saphenous vein. Sometimes there is a vein coming from the posterior side of the thigh, and that is called as a posterior cutaneous vein, nerve of the thigh. So it comes here, but it is not shown in this particular diagram. That also is one of the relations. So now these are the terminations. Sometimes there are variations. The normal is that it goes to popliteal vein. Here you can see popliteal vein and enters into it. Sometimes it bifurcates and one part goes to popliteal vein, the other joins the great saphenous vein from the medial side. Or here in this, you can see that it is not going to popliteal vein at all. It is straight away going and joining the great saphenous vein, right? Okay, so these are the variation. The most important one is that it divides into two, and one joins the saphenous vein and the great saphenous, and the other joins the popliteal vein. Okay, now this vein, just like the great, also has many valves. About 7 to 13 valves are there, and the tributaries are on the near the ankle joint. It will drain from the sole as well as the dorsum of the foot, the veins, and as it goes up, it will be draining, or it will be receiving many cutaneous tributaries in the leg. Then there is a perforating vein which connects the short saphenous vein to posterior tibial veins. Now, posterior tibial artery is there. It is accompanied by venae comitans of the posterior tibial vein. It will open into this, and this is called as lateral perforating vein. So these are the tributaries. Now, I have put this diagram because it shows the connections between the short and the great saphenous vein. This is great saphenous vein. This is a small saphenous vein, and then there are this direct and indirect communications. So here you can see this is sole. So you can see great short saphenous vein with the sural nerve. This is sural communicating. And here you can see dorsal venous arch very beautifully, and you can see the metatarsal veins. And here in the upper ones, these are the digits meaning toes. So between them there will be digital veins which will join to form the metatarsal veins, which will join to form the dorsal venous arch. So you can see so many tributaries coming and joining which are unnamed into the great saphenous vein. It is accompanied by saphenous nerve, while the short saphenous vein is accompanied by sural nerve. Okay, so these are the various relations and the tributaries. And now here you can see the comparison. All right, so the great saphenous vein is definitely longer than the short saphenous. The great begins from the medial end of the dorsal venous arch, while the short begins at the lateral end of the dorsal venous arch. Great saphenous vein is accompanied by saphenous nerve, while the short saphenous is accompanied by the sural nerve. Both have valves. Great saphenous 10 to 12. Here it will be 7 to 13. Roughly, these are the valves which has. Now, great saphenous vein goes anterior to the medial malleolus. This is medial malleolus, is going anteriorly, and then I told you it lies between the medial malleolus and the tendon of tibialis anterior, while the short saphenous vein, it goes posterior to the lateral malleolus, and other than sural nerve, it's not accompanied by any tendon, but of course it is related to this. This is called as a tendocalcaneus, right, which is attached to calcaneus bone, being formed by the two heads of gastrocnemius and the soleus. So these are the comparison between the great and the short saphenous vein, and this also shows you the various communications between the two saphenous veins. Okay, so now the normal venous return is from superficial to deep veins. All right, sometimes there is a direct opening like this. This is superficial, that is a deep vein, and you can see the direct communication. In these veins, the valve will open only in one direction, or the unidirectional, and that direction is from superficial to deep. That is a normal way. There is one more way, that the superficial veins are connected to these deep veins through these vessels which are called as perforators, and they perforate the muscles of the calf. All right, mainly the muscles of the calf, and that is why this is called as an indirect communication via the perforators. So now what are these perforators? It's called perforator because they perforate the deep fascia. What are they? Arteries or the veins? Hello? Are they arteries or veins?
Veins.
Veins. They have to be veins only, right? So perforator vein, that's what this slide says here. Look at this diagram now. This is a deep vein and that is a superficial vein, and they are joined by this perforator, which is directly piercing that green line, that is deep fascia, and opening into femoral vein or any vein. Now look at the lower ones. The lower ones, these veins, they perforate not only the deep fascia but also the muscles, calf muscles, and then they open into the deep veins. So these are called as perforators. These are direct perforators. These are called as indirect perforators. So what will you say about the perforator veins? They perforate the deep fascia. They also have at least one valve, if not more, and that is again unidirectional from superficial to deep. And this again the same purpose. The all valves, they divide the long blood column into short, and that is how reduce the pressure on greater or the short saphenous vein. Okay. They minimize the superficial load pressure. Okay. I said these valves or these valves, if they are incompetent, you'll see the diagrams later, they will cause backflow of the blood, and that is why dilatation and varicosity of the great or the short saphenous vein. This is another diagram. This is superficial vein. Look at the perforator. The diagram vein is, the valve is opening only in one direction. All right. Okay. So that is a perforator. You divide them into two types. I have already told you direct and indirect. So you can see here, this was a direct. This is a direct perforator. Two veins, superficial and the deep, they are connected by veins. Right? These are perforators. Look at this diagram. This is indirect because this is a muscle, usually the calf muscle, in which there are many venous sinuses, and these venous sinuses, they are joined by the superficial vein on one side. Then they join with this sinus, they form the one or two perforators, and then they join into the deep vein. And this is a diagrammatic, which is good. I think this is superficial, green line is deep fascia. Now this is perforator, which is going into joining the muscle sinuses and then becoming again perforators to join the deep vein. These are the indirect perforators. Indirect, this also is indirect because once again they are passing through the muscles. So you classify them into 4. These are the various perforators. Okay. Now clinically there are 4 sites where you get the most important perforators. Here you get the ankle perforators, 3 of them, that is called as a Cockett's perforators. One you get below the knee, that is called as Boyd, which is here. Above the knee, this is called as Dodds. And then one in the adductor canal or Hunterian canal. So these are the Hunterian perforators, and finally it will go and open into the femoral vein. This diagram shows you that the soleus and the gastrocnemius, they are the main calf muscles, right? They are also big and they are contracting many times when we are walking and even standing, and they contain many venous sinuses, right? And these venous sinuses, they are actually the indirect perforators. They will connect to the deeper veins, either the posterior tibial or the popliteal vein. Which vein do they connect? Either the short saphenous or the long saphenous vein. So you have to remember these 4 sites which are clinically important. Once again, this is superficial. You can see the valves, that is why this beady appearance, and this also is perforator, again valves, that is why the beady appearance. Here is a superficial vein passing through the muscles and going into the vena comitans of these deep veins. So what kind of perforator is this? Direct or indirect?
Indirect.
Indirect.
Yes, good. So this is called as venous pump. We'll come to that. Again, all these dots that you see, 1, 2, 3 ankle perforators, Cockett's, below the knee Boyd's, and this one is Hunterian and this. Okay. Now the one in the Hunter's canal or adductor canal communicates or joins femoral vein to the great saphenous vein. Okay. The one in the just above the knee is also joining the femoral with the great saphenous. Below the knee, it joins the great saphenous vein, but now there is no femoral, so it will join the posterior tibial veins, and posterior tibial veins will open in the femoral vein. So they are joining the posterior tibial veins. Here once again the same thing is there, so I'm not going to read. The diagram also is the same. Right. Now below the knee at the this one is Boyd's perforator. Once again the same thing. What you have to remember is this, that there is a lateral ankle perforator. It joins the short saphenous vein once again to peroneal vein. If you remember, there is a peroneal branch of which artery? Okay, find out. This is your homework. So that artery is accompanied by the peroneal vein. So it joins the short saphenous with peroneal, and the peroneal will join then again either the popliteal vein or the posterior tibial vein. Right. Now these are the three ankle perforators. Little bit.
Ma'am, you are muted. Hello, can you hear me now? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
ma'am.
See,
Ma'am.
1 second, the light went off for 1 second and we have lost 4 minutes. Okay, doesn't matter, it's not in our hands. So now the three medial ankle perforators, you can again describe as upper medial, middle medial and the lower medial. Now the lower medial is located posteromedial to medial malleolus. So it will be here, medial malleolus, then in the middle of the thigh, that means 4 centimeters above the medial malleolus. That is the second one, and that is the upper one is the third one, and that is lying just above the connection of or junction of middle and the inferior thigh, part of third of the thigh. All these three medial perforators, they join each other to form what is called as a posterior arch vein, which joins the great saphenous vein I have shown you earlier, and it is also called as vein of Leonardo da Vinci. Right then, so this is again the same thing. Okay, so now what is a calf pump? You get a note even under is calf pump, or also called a peripheral heart. Now the three calf muscles, which I already told you, two gastrocnemius and the soleus, these three, they help in the venous return. All the time, see, your veins, venous blood is returning from the distal to the peripheral, I mean proximal side. So it is going against the gravity. All right. So to break this big column of the blood, we already said there are valves. But when they come to the calf muscles, they are passing through the muscular tissue. Now, this muscular tissue, how they will act? Now, in that, I told you there are venous sinuses. So when the muscles contract, these venous sinuses are compressed and the blood is pushed into the deep veins, and then deep veins will drain the blood upwards towards the, um, let's say, the inferior vena cava. Right? The soleus muscle also has many venous sinuses, and all these, as soon as the muscle relaxes, the blood will be sucked from the superficial vein which joins it. Right? I have shown you the diagram. Just recollect all these things. So these are the sinuses which will be emptied when it is relaxed. The blood comes from the superficial veins. This unidirectional blood flow is kept by the valves which are there in the perforating veins, and because of this, the soleus especially is called as a peripheral heart, or you can say all the three calf muscles, they are called as calf heart. Why it is a peripheral heart? Because it is pushing the blood up. It is contracting and pushing the blood up, just like your main heart pushes the blood all throughout the body. Now think about soleus muscle. Soleus is a postural muscle that you have learned. Postural muscle meaning if I want to stand for 1 hour and take a lecture, it is maintaining my posture, the standing posture. Why does it do that? Because it has got many red fibers which contract slowly and keep sustainingly it contracts. So the groups of red fibers of this muscle keep on contracting one by one, and that is how the soleus becomes a this one postural muscle. So imagine the venous sinuses in this. So all the time some group of muscle is contracting. That is why all the time it is pushing the blood into the deep veins and sucking the blood from the peripheral veins, I mean superficial veins, and that is why this is called as a peripheral heart. Okay. In this soleus muscle, supposing you don't move and sit there for 1 hour without even moving your leg, the blood in the veins become slow. It is hardly moving. In such slow blood or slow moving blood, you get sometimes thrombosis or the formation of a clot. This clot can block the vein. Of course, it's not that big, but sometimes worse is that part of the thrombosis breaks and it forms an embolus, and this embolus can travel upwards and can get lodged into different parts. Right? Okay. Sometimes there is an infection of the veins. Now this is called as phlebitis. Because of this phlebitis, the valves can be damaged. So here now exactly opposite. Here the blood is not moving, so there is a thrombosis. Or if there is an infection, then also the valves are damaged, and that will also lead to dilatation of the veins. So here are some pictures of varicose veins. Here you can see dilated and tortuous veins. Yes? Hello?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
These are called as varicose veins. All right. Now, normal mechanism of vein is like this. This is a valve which will open from the distal towards the proximal side. When it closes, it holds this column of blood. It does not allow it to come back. But here in the varicose veins, the valves are incompetent. So you can see that the valve is not able to close completely, and it allows some regurgitation or reflux of blood coming down into the lower part. That is how if this keeps on happening again and again or for a long period of time, then the superficial veins will be dilated, because all the blood must go from superficial to deep, which it is not happening in this particular case. Also in this case, normal and not normal. Same thing here, unidirectional blood is going this way, but in this segment, the valves are not competent. That is why they are allowing the blood to come back, and that is the dilatation of veins. This is how the patient looks like. Usually they are seen in the legs and even in the thigh, usually on the medial side, because that is where the great saphenous vein is. So any condition which puts the pressure on the legs or in the abdominal cavity can give rise to back pressure of blood and give rise to varicose veins, which are common in the inferior extremity. So here you can see medial side. This also is medial side of the thigh. This is after operation. Right. So then what are the factors which are preventing the varicose vein? Normal factors. First, the veins are muscular. The great saphenous vein and even the short, They are muscular and they have valves that prevents the blood from this thing going back. Then muscles of the calf, which I have already explained, which are the peripheral heart. Okay, there is a deep fascia in the whole of inferior extremity, which is quite strong. Okay, and it tightly compresses all the muscles which are there. So this tight sleeve of deep fascia compresses your peripheral heart or the soleus and the gastrocnemius and helps in pushing the blood upwards. So these are the facilitating venous return. It is the same thing which we have already said. The veins are muscular, there are many valves, and there is a soleus muscle which acts as a peripheral heart. What is new is that the pulsations of the accompanying arteries help in propelling the blood. We said that the superficial veins drain into deep veins, and the deep veins are accompanied by the arteries. So when the arteries are, they have pulsations. So along with that, they help in propelling the blood upwards. And there is a negative pressure in the thoracic cavity, which happens during the respiration. So that time also the venous blood is sucked in, either in the standing or in the recumbent, meaning lying down position. So varicose veins are prevalent in which people? Usually after the age of 50, but not necessarily, but commonly, mainly in the lower limb, commonly in the female, and there is a hereditary factor, and there is a pregnancy that I will tell you just a little later. It is common in all those professions which requires long standing periods, which I have told you, all these surgeons, teachers, lecturers, nurses, bus conductor, opera conductors, stage actors, etc. Traffic police. You know, in our times we had traffic police and there was no green and red lights. So this poor man used to stand in the at that place and used to show his hands, and this is how he used to direct the traffic. They used to wear a big thick elastocrip bandage, right? So that is one of the way to prevent. Then smokers, this is a usual suspect. So all smokers, and persistent and long duration cough or constipation, and the pregnancy. Now these three tells you the pressure which is in the abdomen. If there is a pregnancy, especially towards a further month, that is 6 to 9 months, they put lot of pressure in the abdominal contents and the pelvic contents, and that is why the veins can be compressed and the venous return is not as good, and that is why pregnancy can give rise to varicose veins. Similarly, if there is a constipation or the cough, there is a constant pressure on your abdominal contents, you are straining or pressure is increasing, and that of course when that is happening, then venous return suffers. That is why these people, if it is chronic constipation or the chronic cough, this will keep on happening, and that is why it will give rise to varicose veins. So how will you diagnose? First you look at the physical examination, then there is an ultrasound test to find out whether the valve is functioning or not and whether there is a blood clot, because that is the greatest danger in the varicose veins. And the third is a Trendelenburg test, which you see here, that what you do is that you make the patient first of all lie down, then raise his leg, then with your hand you press all the blood towards the thigh, right, or towards the femoral vein. After you have done that, you put a finger on the saphenofemoral junction where it opens. That means you are actually blocking the saphenofemoral valve. After that, you make the patient stand up, and then when you release this pressure and the vein quickly fills up from above, that means saphenofemoral valve is not functioning. Or you make the patient stand but don't release this finger, keep the finger there. If the vein fills up from below slowly, that means the perforators are not functioning. This is the Trendelenburg test. What are the complications? So first it looks like this, discolored and ugly it looks, right? Here again discolored, the blood is not moving, there is a stasis of the blood. Sometimes you have got all the things of inflammation. So there is pain, redness, swelling, tenderness, all right? And if this continues and you don't do anything about it, then the skin is not receiving enough oxygen because the blood supply is not efficient. The venous blood does not move, so the arterial blood cannot come, and that is why the skin becomes dry, discolored, and then later on it sloughs off, and that is called as varicose ulcer, which is generally seen at the ankle level, generally. So then, how do you treat? There is non-surgical and the surgical treatment. Non-surgical, you do what is called as a sclerotherapy. That means a sclerosant or a material which will make the what do you call it? It will solidify in the vein, all right, or it will make the vein shrink. That is injected into the veins. That is one, sclerotherapy. Second, endovenous laser treatment, which is done by all these vascular surgeons, and I will tell you what it is. The third is non-surgical, is wearing the elastocrine bandage. The surgical means there is a stripping. All right. Now I'll show you the diagram. Now this is a stripping. All right. It was done when we were students. I don't know whether it is done very much these days, but conventional way was removing of the saphenous vein is Babcock stripper. Now this stripper is a long rigid metal wire, right? And this is flexible, of course, and it is passed down from the saphenous opening along the great saphenous vein. Then end is identified in the upper thigh of the or the calf, and then at that time, at that place, 2 mm incision is taken to retrieve the lower end of the stripper. Then one olive, either olive or some round object of 8 millimeter diameter is attached to the upper end, and then it is pulled down. So as it comes down, it actually removes the vein, and the whole vein is removed and along with the wire from the lower opening. And then the incision, which was up here, is closed. So this was called as ligation. But other so many non-invasive is this. How will you take the treatment? So first, most important is self-care. You exercise, lose weight. Do not wear tight clothes. Stockings you can wear, but not the upper clothes. Elevating the legs and avoid sitting or standing for long periods of time. This will cause by itself reduction of pain and varicose veins. Or otherwise you wear the compression stockings or the elastocrine bandage. Then there is a sclerotherapy, which is called as foam sclerotherapy. So one foam solution is introduced into the veins, which will close the vein and seal it. Then there is endoscopic vein surgery. It is performed by, in the advanced case, during the leg ulcer. So what it is doing is a camera is passed, thin video camera inserted into the veins of the leg to visualize and close the varicose veins, and then the veins are removed once again through a small incision. So instead of that long stripping wire, they use this, and that is one of the this one treatment. Other one is catheter assisted procedures using radio frequency or laser energy to warm up the veins. So what you do is that you introduce a catheter in the enlarged vein and heat the tip through the laser energy or through the radio frequency, and as the catheter then is pulled out, the heat will destroy or collapse the vein and seal it shut. This is preferred. This is one is a preferred procedure for large veins. That is how it is used. Right then. So you know the treatment, surgical and the non-surgical, and you also know how to diagnose the condition. So now this is a quick summary of the perforators. Right. So the perforators connect superficial to the deep vein to equalize the pressure between two systems. They begin in the saphenous, that is superficial compartment to deep compartment. Normal flow is described to be centripetal because it is going from superficial to deep, and the deeps are going towards the center. So that is how centripetal. Each perforator has at least one valve that is unidirectional. Once again, the flow is directed from superficial to deep. The perforators, PTVs, perforators connect to the distal GSV near ankle. GSV is great saphenous vein near the ankle. Now there are 3 ankle perforators. You already know their position. Cockets at the ankle, Boyd's midway or just below the knee, just above the knees, dots, and then the Hunterian perforator. Okay. You also know that what veins they connect. Below the knee, remember, they connect the great saphenous vein to the vena comitans or the posterior tibial vein. In the thigh, like dots and the Hunterian, they connect the great saphenous vein to the femoral vein. At least this much you remember. Lateral perforators, they connect short saphenous vein near the mid calf. In the leg, each leg there are at least 100 perforators, including the direct and the indirect, and their usual diameter is between 2 to 4 millimeters. The flow we have already said. Ankle perforator, if damaged, then gives rise to ulcer, And dilated perforators can occur in the response to DVT or the thrombosis. Now, what happens that if the deep vein thrombosis occurs, DVT is a deep vein thrombosis. I told you that the blood is not moving from superficial to deep. So comparatively, it is in the stasis position. So what happens is that a clot is formed. Now this clot is when forms usually when you are sitting there for a long period of time, and then you suddenly stand up, the muscles contract, calf muscles, and this clot is pushed up. As it is pushed up, it will go to the right side of the heart. All veins will drain the right side, and then it can enter into through the pulmonary veins. It will enter into pulmonary circulation. So if the thrombus is big, it will go into the pulmonary trunk, main, and one of the pulmonary branches. One of my friends, that particular embolus went and sat exactly where the pulmonary artery divides into two. She was convalescing. She was in the bed after the operation for a long period of time. Then the clot formed, and one day when she just stood up from the bed, this particular embolus sat at that pulmonary artery division and she collapsed. Because she was in the US of A, she could be saved and immediately carried. But this deep vein thrombosis is really life threatening. I think we have missed that slide, but anyway, you read that. Now, when you go on a long haul flight, let's say from Nepal to US of A, the flight is about 7 to 8 hours if you go without taking a connecting flight. Now, in such position, you are sitting. You are sitting there for 7 to 9 hours. Your legs are flexed. I mean, they're in that sitting position. And that is why the airlines tell you these days. And what used to happen is that people used to stand up. They will get the thrombus, embolus, and then they will suddenly collapse when they stand up and start walking down. So now they tell you that you sit there and do some exercises as you're going on a long flight like this. Move your legs, stand up and take a walk in the aisle. All right. They tell you to do all that. This is for your good. So that is the not anatomy, but that is a clinical anatomy behind it. All right. That takes care of the venous drainage. These are MCQs. Do you want to answer this MCQ? Can you read it? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you read? Do you want to solve one? There are two more, but which is the correct statement regarding the venous perforators of the lower limb? They connect the veins to the arteries. Right or wrong?
Wrong.
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 Wrong. Wrong. No? Good. They connect veins to veins. They perforate the deep fascia. Right,
Correct.
wrong?
Right.
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 Correct.
Okay. They do not have valves. Right, wrong?
Wrong.
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 And they do not have any role in causing the varicose vein. This also is wrong, right?
Wrong.
So the correct answer is B. Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Regarding the veins, we can finish this, so it will be totally over. Regarding the veins of the lower limb, what is the correct statement? Now, short saphenous vein is a deep vein. Answer that.
Wrong.
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 Femoral vein is a superficial vein.
Wrong. Wrong.
Wrong.
Wrong.
Okay. Great saphenous vein is the longest superficial vein.
Right.
Right. And the great saphenous vein opens in the popliteal vein.
Wrong.
Wrong. Now, regarding the great saphenous vein, you have to tell the incorrect statement. All right? Okay. So, at ankle joint, it lies between the medial malleolus and the tendon of tibialis anterior. True.
Right.
Yeah. It pierces the cribriform fascia.
Right. True.
Right. It has 10 to 20 valves. Correct, no? That is why this last answer is wrong. Great and the short saphenous veins do not connect with each other is wrong. So now that is the end of the lecture. This is an important lecture, though it is veins. Do everything about the great saphenous vein and the varicose veins. Okay, so this is the end of the lecture. I am disconnecting. Right? Okay.
Thanks.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Thank you,
Yes.
ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.